Okay, so good morning, everyone. So I think morning naman enough. So this is another recording for our subject IT 38 or elective one. So for this video, I'd like to talk about web server, and we will talk about the client server model and as well as SAMP. And I will also have to introduce to you how PHP works. Okay, so this is just another overview for web server as well as PHP. So this is not gonna be that in depth, but this is somehow a very important concept that we must talk about before we start talking about PHP or dealing with um, client server web application. Okay, so let's start by understanding what's a client and server network architecture. So basically, I think you have already have a knowledge on what client server architecture is, and this is particularly discussed in your networking subjects. So I won't go too much detail. This is just an overview of how kind of web application works. Okay, so in order to understand web application in today's modern web application, we need to understand or consider the concept about client server architecture. So most of the web application running today in the internet is basically following this model or architecture. So most particularly, um, um, a website that is using PHP. No? So you need a server for you to run PHP. Okay. So we have talked about already about JavaScript, no? So or JS or ECMAScript script. So we talked about this one already, and I hope you have understand it. And JavaScript, by the way, is a scripting language or a programming language that is intended or used most likely in the client side. So this is in the web development or a web application. This is again the behavior or the interaction of the users. So scripts like this are located or kind of parsed or can be parsed in a client computer, okay, or a mobile phone or laptop. So whereas PHP in connection to our upcoming topic. So PHP is a server-side scripting language. So to make it short, we need to know this concept about client side to really have a further idea why do we need to use PHP and what is PHP really is all about. So we will have anyway further discussion about PHP once we get back with our classes. But this at this point in your project, I just would like to give you this idea of why do we need to use PHP. Okay, it's because of this concept. No, wherein clients like most likely kita who are using internet are most likely kanabang utilizing resources from servers. Wherein those server resources that we are getting are processed using PHP programming language. Okay, so like for example in Facebook, all of our posts, all of our images, or maybe not all, no, siguro post and chats, no, so are run using PHP. So um, all of the processing at the back end part is with using PHP. So um, in this particular area, this is the part we're going to focus on the second part or on the second part of our web development subject. This is where we're going to focus the server side, wherein we're going to deal with PHP programming and as well as this one, MySQL. Okay, so MySQL basically, I think it has already been introduced to you. MySQL is used as a database, no? So this is the database popularly used in web development or in web today. So there are different versions of databases. Somehow for development, most likely ang ginagamit is ang MySQL. Okay. To add also, in order for us to later on run PHP, we really need to configure a server. So I think, if I'm correct, you have already done server configuration with your, I think it is your OS subject before or the last semester. So you have done some server configurations. So I think you were able to do Slackware or CentOS. So basically, you'll need that in order for you to run PHP script, or in short, you need a web server for that to happen. So the thing lang is, it is quite hard to uh, run a real server in real hardware also, because it would actually consume a lot of time in turning your server on and off, and as well as configuring your server. So that is not really good if you are trying to develop something now, so at the development part. So for us in this subject, so we will try to make use of a package, or an application or software that is a pre-built or package with PHP, MySQL, and Apache. So in order for us to run basically this architecture, or to follow this architecture, we need this one. We need a web server. Okay. So to run a website, we need a web server, and for that web server to happen, we need to configure something. But again, in development, we need something that we can actually directly develop right away without worrying on the correct or the right configurations for our hardware or for our machine. So this is where some come in. No? So I think you are all familiar with this one. If for you, for those of you who have used this one, this is software that is packaged with Apache, MariaDB, PHP, and Perl. So I think some of you also is not yet that familiar with this, but this is just similar to WAMP. For those of you who are Windows user, you might have encountered WAMP, and some of you might have used LAMP or MAMP, but they are just the same, no? This is a PHP, one of the most popular PHP development environment. So this is a package server wherein you can actually install in your computer and make your local computer become a local server. So the idea of SAMP here now is to give us this architecture, allow us to establish a local server or a local web server wherein we can process PHP scripts, and as well as to give us with this database or MySQL. No, so this is one of my goal this video, to introduce to you SAMP and the use of SAMP. No, so ano man gud na may uban na install lang, you don't know kung ano mag-install ta, no? So just to have a clear idea, this is why you need to install SAMP, because you cannot achieve a website running if you don't have any web server, or you cannot use PHP most likely if you don't have any web server. So that is the reason why we are going to install SAMP. Okay. So actually, I have installed SAMP already, but in this video, I'll just have to demonstrate how to download, and installation just is easy. This is just a click next and next and next on the installation part. No, dili na kay siya nga na complicated. Okay. So for those of you, or I think most of you are using Windows as your OS, you can actually download this version, no? SAMP for Windows version 7.2. And if you have Apple or Mac, then you can use also this one. One good thing with SAMP is it's cross-platform, so you don't need to actually adjust. Let's just say there is this idea man good na before ang SAMP ani, yeah, but we have different server or local server that we need to install for each machine and for each OS, and then there is really a quite adjustment for you to really make and I may really make kanabang makomportable no sa paggamit sa software. So this is the reason why SAMP is quite also good because it's a cross-platform software wherein you can actually download a SAMP this for Windows, a SAMP for Linux and OS. No, so your familiarity with SAMP will just carry through with other OSs. So again, you can choose, and then for us, we need to download SAMP. No, so just have to click this one, then you will be redirected to this one. And in my case, I have downloaded already and installed SAMP. No, so you can download here. So once it downloads, uh, I think my internet is just slow now. So anyway, so once you download this one, then you can install SAMP, and then once you have installed SAMP, then you will have this application here, SAMP. So currently, I have already installed SAMP. So this is the control panel that you are going to get once you install SAMP. Okay, you just need to make sure, guys, when you install SAMP, you need to put it in the you can just to make sure, no, and to really encounter less error, you can put it in the directory or in the C drive. So most likely when you install it, it'll just go directly there. But if you change the directory, you just need to be careful. So okay, so this is the SAMP. Kung i-download, it pops up. So basically, we can download this one if you want. So let's just wait. So again, I have already downloaded. So this is what you're going to see. And then one thing also that you know that it is successfully installed is that you have this folder here on your drive C. Now a sum folder, or or XAMPP. By the way, guys, you can call it XAMPP or SAMP. So however you like it. Many people call it SAMP. Many people also call it XAMPP. So it is your own preference anyway. So once you install this one, notice that you will actually get these services. So these are the modules that is available for some. For our PHP development, what we'll actually focus or need is the Apache module and the MySQL module. By the way, for clarification, Apache, by the way, is a web server that is free. It's an open source web server managed by Apache org, Apache. I think yeah, it's Apache.org. It's an open source organization that develops, or this one, Apache Software Foundation. No? It's an open source software that we can actually use. No, according to this article here, Apache runs 67% of almost all the web servers in the world. So that includes Facebook, Google, and other websites. Most likely websites that is run using WordPress now are also using it. So it's based on Apache. So that is why we are also trying to make use of Apache or SAMP. So with the installation of SAMP, actually, guys, you are given a bundle of this. So again, a web server, a database, then the PHP parser, and as well as this. No, so or Perl. So, but we will not going to make use of that. So um, so um, Apache again is a web server bundled in SAMP. So you don't need to configure it. No, not unless you want. But you can actually configure it also here if you want to configure. So you can go to httpd.conf. I think if you are familiar with server configuration, then you'll know that this is one of the most important file in an Apache server. No, this is where the configuration for server is located. And if you don't know what you're doing here, please don't touch anything here or delete or anything or edit if you don't know what you're doing, as well as in the other configurations, especially also in the database. Now, if you don't know what you're doing, you can just actually ask, or you can actually go to the internet. Okay, now Once we have this SAMP, so the installation process is just quite easy. Again, wala din na ako i-demo ha kay kapoy naman nga ako pang install, and my internet also is very slow, so I cannot actually download a new software. And especially guys, if I install it again, I might lose all of my projects here. So munang I don't want to compromise my directory here. So that is why I'm just gonna have to tell you that you just download it, then install, and click next and next and next. So yeah, so once you are done, there are also some errors by the way that I would like to highlight, because in most cases, once it is your first time to install some, you'll need this one. Some OS or some computer is not packaged with this one, no? The Visual C++ redistributable. So you'll need this one depending on what year. So I think 2015 is the current version. So this is a requirement for you to run this SAMP. No? So if you don't have that, and you will encounter an error while running your SAMP application, then kindly go here, do what I did, download this one, and then install. Just this is by the way that a .NET framework that is really required for most Windows software. So yeah, so once we have this, then we can actually run or start our server. So once it starts, you can notice that it's actually green somehow. Sa pag at it's red. And we can also start our database. Now, notice that these are the ports that is occupied by SAMP. And guys, if you have Skype, somehow applications like that tried to occupy port 80. So you might encounter some error like your SAMP will kanang stop while you run, so your Apache will not run, no? So something like that na. So you can just disable or uh, exit those application. Like most likely ang suspect ana gid is ang Skype, no? So dili sila friendly ani ni SAMP. And one thing also, if you are using VPN or virtual private network, so maka-compromise po na siya sa kining kang Apache, no? So na ay mga errors nga ma-encounter ninyo. So you just have to be vigilant, no? You just need to check on what are those applications also na that occupies this port. So there is actually a command for Windows that you can check the port, pero it would take me time to look at it. But you can just research, no, to check if what are those applications that occupy this one. But the one thing you'll have to notice is that this will turn green and means it's okay that it is now running. Somehow it will give you a prompt here if it's running. No? So as of the moment, the status for our MySQL is running, and as well as our Apache. So meaning to say we're good to go. We have now our web server running, up and running, and we also have our database up and running. Now, if we want to check where or our website, so remember that website has this what you call domain, no? So like for example, www dot, let's say, udemy.com. So this is what you call a domain, no? This domain actually are addresses that is actually located on a specific hardware, no? Or a specific physical location, like for example nato network location like 192.168, that's something like that. So, muna siya. So, in our case, since we are just running our server in our local, so based in the theory in networking, so if you want it to just look into your own computer, you need to use the loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1. So, using loopback address, you will be redirected to your own server, which is located to your PC or machine, or you can just also just simply type localhost and it will just do the same now. So this is the dashboard. This also signifies that our SAMP is running and it's ready and we can actually use it now. So this is the default dashboard if once we run SAMP. Now If we want our own directory, or if we want our own web directory, like for example, if we want to create our own application, no, we need to have our own directory. So in web, guys, web directory is where we place all of our resources. For example, for applications like this, you need to create your own web directory. So where do you create web directory in XAMPP? Now that's the question. So first, there are ways to go there. So you can just click this one, Explorer, and then go to htdocs, and this is where you can actually place your own directory. Notice that I type iperform here, and iperform directory actually exists. So the document root for our server by default is actually this. This is the default directory. Now, when you want to adjust this one, then again, you can just go here in the configuration, and you can reset your document root if you want. No, but in our case, let's just keep it default. Okay. So now that we are here, we can actually create our own directory wherein we can actually access our file. Now, I have accessed this one. This is project, one of my project. No, I created this directory, and then I access it, try to access it. Now, if you want to create your own as first time, you'll just have to create a new folder here, a new directory. Okay, so new, then you can just name it according to how you want it. Now, for this case, for the sake of this one, we'll just have to name our directory as demo. And now, when you want to navigate to demo, that directory actually exists. But what happened is no resources or no file is actually present at this current directory. So what we'll have to do is we'll try to make use of this text editor, and then we'll try to set up our environment now. So we'll need the text editor again for development. So we'll just have to open that directory. Just, we can just put it here. So we have here yeah, demo, and then we can just select that folder. Okay, now that we've selected it, then we will create our own, our first file. So let's just save our file, and let's just say index.html, or let's just say index.php, since we are already running PHP using XAMPP, and as well as it will be handled by the PHP parser for of XAMPP. No? So yeah, so now that we have this, we can actually create basic PHP script. Let's just say go hello world. So again, remember, once we navigate yung ganiha, we navigated here, wala pa siya sulod. Pero now, when we refresh this one, we can actually get a file from this directory, in which web server by default, when once it checks the directory, it will try to look for an index.html or index.php file, and then what happens is it will then right away load that file. No, idiretso na niya. So whatever index file that we have, now let's test if what if delete the index ang atong name. So once we do that, notice that it will not automatically load. So that is also the essence why we put index to our file. So any file name that has a name of index, so it will be automatically processed. Now let's just turn it back to index. Now what happened if uh, now what happened if so what happened if we have another file? We have, let's say, index.html. What will happen now? So let's test what will happen. Reload. Yeah. Notice that it still processes the PHP file. Now, there is a timestamp on the time where you created the file. So, for example, let's just delete this file. And so once we reload, we don't actually see anything. Let's just put HTML index. So we actually have this now rendered. Now if we want to create a PHP file, so let's reload. Note that it will automatically render the PHP as the main index. So even though there are two index files here, PHP will always come at the top of the heap. No? So siya yung una niyang i-render. So ayan. So now we have that one. No? So that is how the PHP parser also behaves. Okay. So yan. So this is how you render a PHP file, or this is how you render or use XAMPP to render a file here on a local server. Okay. So yan. Then another also that comes with XAMPP is this one, the MariaDB or the database. Okay. So once you install XAMPP, again, one package that is included is the MariaDB. So this is the interface for the MariaDB. I know everyone is familiar with this one already. So you can actually create your own database. No? So here I have already have my own database. So you can actually check, can create date tables here. No? You can create your own tables. Can create views, something like that. No? So this is PHP wherein you can actually create your own database in which we can actually use it here in PHP later on when we do back-end programming. So and so that is the basic, or basically this is what we're going to need if we want to develop application that is actually following this architecture now, using a client side or client server architecture. So in our case, since we need PHP, again, we need this. We need a parser for PHP. By the way, guys, if you really want to explore also, you can actually download PHP individually as well as Apache and MariaDB, pero it would actually take time. So you can download them separately, pero why bother doing that when you can just actually download it in by package, or by bundle and then run it, So, yeah, so this is some. This is just an overview again of what is XAMPP and how PHP is used, or what are the underlying theories why PHP or how PHP works. So we will have in-depth discussion about PHP. So for the meantime, we'll just settle onto this one. We will have further discussion about PHP and MySQL. So I will create another video probably tomorrow about these concepts about PHP and MySQL. So for now, so that is some, and this is how the web applications on the internet also works. So if you have questions, again, do not hesitate to chat me on Facebook, or try also to ask questions during classes, if you really don't understand these things. So for now, this is XAMPP, this is client server architecture, and for my next topic, for my next video, I will talk about PHP and as well as MySQL and do some CRUD operation. And then another video is I'm going to plan also to show you how you can make use of PHP and JavaScript to talk to one another. So that is one of the future topics that we're going to talk about. So that is for this morning. It's already 1 a.m. So I'll upload this video right away. So see you around. Thank you for listening.